Hey guys, happy new year. Welcome to my channel. I'm doing this thing where I turn my blog posts into videos. So this is one of the more popular blog posts, the top 3 cheapest places to travel, aka the top 3 cheapest places that I've traveled, but that's neither here nor there. Let's hop right into the list. So I've come to learn that you can't judge an entire trip on something like how much it costs to get there or how cheap the cost of living is there. So think of a country where it may be third worldish and it's super cheap, you know, you get meals for $1, but it may cost like $1,200 to get there unless you find a really good cheap sale, or yeah, a glitch fare, which is when airlines mistakenly price airfares well below what they're worth. Like I got a round trip deal from New York to Dominican Republic for, I think it was $124 a couple years ago. That was a sale fare versus a glitch fare, but if you find a $125 round trip fare to Abu Dhabi, which they had those, it was South Africa and it was Dubai and Abu Dhabi, I believe, and those were about $120 or $200. I'm probably lying. They were less than $200. That was a glitch fare. That was a mistake on behalf of the airline, and they decided to run with it and honor the airfares. Otherwise, they would have had some problems. There was a similar glitch fare recently with Ethiopian Airlines, and they did not honor it, and there was an uproar on the interwebs. I mean, you should have seen Twitter going at them. So let's start from the more expensive place on my list of cheap places. Number 3, Belize. Now, Belize is very special to me because it was my first solo international trip. And I prepared for it by taking a quick trip to San Francisco by myself. I stayed in a hostel, and I thought this is going to prepare me for when I get to Europe and decide to actually stay in real hostels. And yeah, it did the trick. So I went to Belize by myself. When I landed, I was locked out of my Airbnb. It was kind of drama filled, but kind of not, because I just walked around. Like, I just shrugged it off and, you know, went to a restaurant, found Wi-Fi. And by restaurant, I mean an open space place with a bar, and I don't know where the kitchen was, but beach views. They had the chairs with swings, and oh, it was amazing. I love Belize. But anyway, it was one of the cheapest places that I have traveled to. So the currency is Belizean dollars. 1 USD is 2 BZDs, so Belizean dollars. My flight was $257 round trip from New York City. And I want to say, I know that I took this trip in March of 2016, I believe, and I booked it a few months in advance. I was going through this thing, and I still kind of do this. I'll just book flights, and I'm like, oh, it's 6 months from now. Whatevs. Like, that was my thing. As far as accommodations go, I went with Airbnb. I'm still addicted to Airbnb, even though sometimes, you know, I want to stay in a cool hostel in the heart of the city, or I want to treat myself to a hotel every now and then. And those are usually pretty cheap. It's like nice hotels, but pretty cheap. I'm not staying in luxury anything. So my Airbnb accommodations was in a shared home. It was, and I'm taking notes from my actual blog post. I'm linking it below. Go check it out. But accommodations was $168 for 6 days and 5 nights on Caye Caulker in a shared Airbnb. So after the whole I'm locked out, girl, you didn't leave this key where you said you would situation, we figured it out. I know that I went next door to see if they had a spare key, but I think once I got in contact with the hostess, she sent the housekeeper over to open up the door for me. Something like that. I can't even remember. That's how much it did not affect me. I did not care. All was right with the world. So it was a shared Airbnb, but I was there for, I think, 2, maybe 3 nights by myself. And when a couple finally showed up, oh, I was there with the dog. It was, wow, why was I there with that dog? Anyway, once this couple showed up, I walked up. I think I was coming from the beach or something. That was something I did. Go to the beach every day. I just love laying out in the sun. I never get in the water. Nothing against getting in water, but I just love laying out and tanning. So I was leaving from the beach, going back home, probably to shower or nap or something. The couple was also locked out. the same thing that happened to me happened to them. So I let them in. Don't know if they ever got a key or whatever. And then I think the next night the hostess came. K Calker, I keep hearing that it's one of the more expensive Ks, because if you're not going to stay in Belize City, which I kind of wouldn't recommend. People always talk about it being dangerous, but to me, there's just not much to see there. So if you don't care about people warning you about danger, blah, 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 I would stay in one of the Ks. So there's Ambergris K, K Calker. Is San Pedro also called Ambergris K? There are several Ks. And there's actually another island that, I'm sorry, I can't think of right now, that people actually go to instead of staying on one of the more popular Ks. But whenever I see someone talk about K Calker, they talk about how it's one of the more expensive Ks. I say Ambergris K is more expensive. K Calker is very small. I could lap the island in no time. I remember walking from one beach back to the lagoon on the other side. Like, it's small, but it's quaint, it's charming, and I loved it. And I love how cheap everything was. So let's get down to the important stuff. So the average cost of my meals, I personally spent about $10 to $12 on lunch and dinner. I usually skip breakfast, or if I ate breakfast, then I'd skip lunch and then just eat an earlier dinner because I wasn't hungry and portions were big and it was filling. So I spent $10 to $12 on each meal, but I could have cut that in half. I was so shocked at what I could get for $10. I was like splurging daily. I was one of these situations, and it wasn't even that serious, but I got what I wanted, and I didn't have to limit myself or say, oh, let me pinch and save money. Probably today, if I went back, you know, I would try to go for the cheap food, and I love that everything was local. There are no chain restaurants. There is no McDonald's on these little bitty islands. So I'm eating fish that was caught this morning, rice and beans, coconut rice and beans, oh my god, like little salads, trying to get my veggies in. I remember one time I walked to the other side of the island and I found this little spot, met this nice British couple, and we like chatted over jerk chicken, and I think it was too spicy for them, but it was like everything for me. It was so good. So yeah, Belize is one of those places where the cost to get there may be cheap. It's a $25 cab ride from the airport to the actual ferry stop. What would you call that? The port. No, it's not really a port. It's just where the ferries would come pick you up to take you to the different Ks. Tickets to the islands vary if I were going further because they make stops like a bus. So if I were going further, I would pay more than the, I think, $12 I paid to go from the Belize City pickup spot to K Calker. I think it was like $12. So then I'd have to pay another $12 to get back there. When in Belize, I did things like snorkeling. And I'll link my main post below so that you can go check out everything I did in these cities, because it's really affordable and you can't go there and not do things like snorkeling on a boat. I swam with sharks, literally. What else? I did a day trip to ruins, and if you want to go to, I'm gonna mess up this name, but there is a ruins location that people go to when they visit Belize, and I think it's right across the border in Guatemala. Is it Tikal? I don't know, but it's right across the border in another country, so try to get 2 passport stamps if you can, but it's pretty far, so I would have had to stay in Belize City, because coming from the Ks, the time that we needed to be on the road, I would have just been getting on my ferry to get to Belize City, so I couldn't do that. But there are ruins closer by. They're not as amazing as the bigger ones, but I felt like I had Altunha all to myself. It was a personalized tour. It was just me and the driver, and he like dropped me off to pick up Johnny cakes on the side of the road. Like, he just tried to make me feel special, so I enjoyed it. Next up on the list, number 2 cheapest place that I have traveled to is Mexico. I've been to Mexico 3 different times. So I went to Cancun with my sister many years ago. The second time I went to Tulum with one of my best friends. We did Tulum and Riviera Maya. I'll also drop the link to that below. And the third time was months after. So in 2017, in January, I went to Tulum and Riviera Maya. We flew into Cancun, of course. And then in April of 2017, I went back to Cancun for my other best friend's bachelorette party. So it is definitely and will always be one of my favorite countries, even though I don't talk about it a lot. But it's also very, very cheap, especially, I would say, in the Tulum region. And I'm thinking about the average cost of like a meal or transportation or something like that. Now, getting around from Cancun to Tulum may not be super cheap. Hotels, especially hotels, because Tulum is becoming like the most popular part of the Cancun area. So they're throwing up these boho chic, sleep in a tent for $500 a night. They're doing a lot of that, but it's still a very, very cheap and affordable destination. So, whips out notes. It's definitely one of the countries that I visited a few times. You know I don't do repeat countries, and the only other place I can say that about is now Paris, which you know is my favorite city, so that's natural. I've only been there 2 times, and I end up at Italy almost every year. So I just keep saying it must be my favorite country because every time I go I love it, and every place I go to is totally different from the last, but that's neither here nor there. So the currency is, or at least at the time of writing this post, $1 US to 17.72 Mexican pesos. A lot of South American and Central American countries use the term pesos, but they are not all created equal. So 17.72 Mexican pesos is the equivalent of $1 US. For flights, I was on my points game at this point, and I spent 23,000 points for the flight in January, round trip. So that was from New York to Cancun and back. And then in April, I used about 40,000 points. I also have a certain credit card where I get an extra percentage off when using my points. So this is not the standard amount of points. So maybe you'd use 30K round trip and I use 23K, and maybe you use 60 round trip when I use 40. So yeah. Accommodations, $139 for 3 nights on the top floor of an Airbnb. And I picked this place because of the decor. I don't even know what to describe it as, but it had patio access. It had like the pallet beds, and I've always wanted a pallet bed. I love platform beds, but I specifically, like, the next time I move, I want to get actual pallets from like Home Depot or from out back of a store, lay them down and just throw my memory foam mattress on them and go to bed. So it had that type of funky rustic decor. I loved the painting, and it had a kind of a decent view, but it's just at the top of homes from the patio, so it wasn't that big of a deal. It was just a couple roads back from the main road that goes through Tulum. So this is the main road, and we were a couple blocks back like this, so it's perpendicular. Yeah, it was just a cute little place. The only thing I could say about it is it had a little ant problem, so I like propped my luggage up onto a milk crate. Like, they were really going with these crate thing, but I propped my luggage up and ants still ended up getting into it. So even though I loved it, which happens with a lot of Airbnbs with me, I like them and I probably will never stop using Airbnb, but I have yet to have a place where I'm like 100% all the way around, I love this place. So when I find that place, I'll share it with you. So because I was traveling with someone, I usually end up being the one to like pay for something and they Venmo me or something like that. And especially because I like to use my credit card when I'm traveling. I rarely have cash. So Colombia was the first time where I was just like dollar bill. But that was because I kind of had to. Or I didn't want to run my credit card or make them run my credit card for like $3 and then they be charged an extra percentage. I'm not that much of a douche. So it's hard looking back at my credit card statements to see how much I spent on a meal because I was paying for 2 meals, and usually I'm gonna get, you know, cheap local options where, you know, my friend may get a few drinks or something that isn't necessarily local to the land, and, you know, pay extra, maybe pay double than what I paid for my fresh caught fish and salad and, I don't know, ceviche. So let's say I kept my meals kind of around 10 to 15 bucks, which is still on the pricier side. I mean, you could do that in the States, $10 for a meal. And especially when in Tulum, you can find an authentic meal at a local restaurant for around 10 bucks or way cheaper than in the Riviera Maya area / Playa del Carmen. The hotel had a funny name, but I think that was technically Playa del Carmen, where I was spending probably 10 bucks on a meal in a restaurant, but those were the cheaper options because I'm not buying hotel food. Like, it wasn't that great to be spending that money, even though it was very photo worthy. Like, it was cute. So what did I do in Tulum? We visited the cenotes, one cenote in particular, and snorkeled, visited a bat cave. So cenotes are those kind of cavernous turquoise blue lakes. Like, they seem like they're in a cave, but there's water there, and it's just so gorgeous. And I think I have some pictures that I'm going to insert here. It was just a magical time, and it was one of the few things that I wanted to do. And I want to say, when in Tulum, aside from going to the beach, it was January, so it was a little too cool for me to get in the water, and at points I was even too cold to lay out, but I did. So aside from like going to the beach and eating, we went to the ruins for a little bit. The only major activity that I did was the cenotes. As far as the hotel I stayed at, it was luxury. I mean, bathtub in the middle of the room, and you're probably wondering how me and my friend showered if everything was glass, but it was sexy. I would make her turn over when I would take like a hot bubble bath with my Lush bath bomb. Like, it was a lovely time. We had a balcony with a view of the ocean, and there was even a tub on the balcony. So that was the type of place I was staying at. That was more on the expensive side. Alright, now to round this out, for number one, we kind of have a tie. And I'm really going to be deep into my notes for this because they're so similar and I don't want to get confused with the different places. So the number one cheapest place that I traveled to, and it's a tie, between Thailand and Bali. Let's get into the differences. So $1 US is equivalent to 33.26 Thai baht, THB, or 13,362.10 Indonesian rupiahs, so IDRs, a cha-ching. So when it came to Bali, after getting a refund on the $600 flight that I originally purchased because the airline was on some bull, I used 64,000 of my Chase Ultimate Reward points to book my round trip flight. When it came to Thailand, I paid a $471 a round trip from New York for that flight. So I hope that these prices are like blowing you back, because if you thought that it would take like $1,500 or $2,000 just to get to these places, think the freak again. 1 second. So even though these two cities come in at number one for me, I kind of feel like I spent less money in Bali. But when I was in Thailand, I also flew around to 3 different cities. So this is a toughie. I really have to take that into consideration. So Thailand is super cheap, but the closer to the touristy spots you are, the more expensive it is, obviously. So when I was in Phuket, it was so hard for me to find local food. When I did, it was gross because I had become accustomed to it was like 70-cent pad Thai that I would get on the streets of Bangkok. So I would walk out onto the street. It was the busiest road in Thailand. I think it's pronounced Khao San Road, and that's where my hostel was. And I would just be like, may I have an order of pad Thai, please? Literally on the street, rows and rows of people making it, and you just got to go to whoever you feel safest with. Never got sick. Not saying that you won't, but it was the most delicious. Like, I've never had anything as good. And I love noodle dishes. Like, I'm kind of into Asian food, whether it's sushi. I was about to say lo mein, but I don't even think that's a thing there. But noodle dishes, so all types of noodle dishes, and I love pad Thai especially. In Bali, I paid almost $30 a night for a hotel. You can find plenty cheaper. I found this place on Airbnb, and I don't know, it was gorgeous. I thought it was a room, and then I'm like, wait a minute, this is a freaking hotel, and it has a little pool. Not that I got in the pool, like I was at the beach every day. I walked to the beach every day from my hotel, so it was more than worth it. But I'm pretty sure you could find a place for like 15 bucks a night, or look on Airbnb, and I'm sure you'll find things for $10 a night, no problem. When it comes to the average cost of meals in Bali, $11.17 was the most I spent on a meal in Bali. Thailand was around the same, but in Thailand I felt like I was spending more because I was in very expensive areas, if that makes sense. Like, just because I was, you know, right on the other side of the street from the night market in Chiang Mai, like, I'm paying for that. And I found the night market because I was like roaming around and the sun was going down, and I saw people setting up stalls, and I'm like, is this the freaking night market? Which happens one day a week, I believe. So I was so lucky that the day I flew in, it was going down, and I got amazing things. So, side note, if you ever visit Thailand and Chiang Mai and Bangkok are on your list, or even Phuket, wherever you go, you will find the same exact things in Chiang Mai at the night market for like a third of the price than they're gonna get you to pay. And in Bangkok, I'm negotiating like, oh, if they said something costs $20, I'm like, I'll give you 10. And I'm thinking I got away with it. No, you could find it for like $3 to $5 in Chiang Mai. So don't do it to yourself. So also, when it comes to food in Bali, the best bang for my buck was a meal consisting of sushi, spring rolls, and I think I just had one beer. That was less than $7, and it was also in a super touristy area, which I stayed in Kuta Beach. So $7, less than $7 for sushi, and I always get two types of sushi. So I always get like the spicy tuna, spicy salmon, or just a regular salmon and tuna roll, spring rolls, and a beer, the local beer, but a beer, less than $7. You can't do better than that. Except when I compare it to the ultimate meal in Bangkok, which was that 70-cent pad thai. So, yeah. What I can say about both places is that they have a definite tie when it comes to getting gypped by transportation. I didn't use Uber in Thailand. I didn't even think to use it. Who knows, it may be illegal because it's illegal in Bali. So as far as landing at the airport and ordering up an Uber or some type of car, it's illegal, and you're technically supposed to go to arrivals. So you're coming out of departures, but you need to take your luggage and go up to arrivals and meet them, if they even can come and get you. As far as using an Uber to get to the airport, I paid like 60 cents. That's how it is. But leaving the airport, I got gypped from a taxi, and I talked him down. He was not budging, and I had to be like, all right, I'll pay you this $20 to drive me like this 15 to 20 minutes to my hotel. There's no getting around it. The same thing goes for Thailand. You can read all the blogs you want, and they say, go by the meter price, tell them to turn on that meter. They're going to charge you what you want, like point blank period. Uber is illegal in a lot of countries, and it's becoming illegal in a lot of countries, and there's nothing we can do about it. The cab drivers have the last word. Like, they can charge you whatever they want, and they usually do. So as far as transportation, I can't really give you a guesstimate, but I do recommend, when in Bali at least, when you can use an Uber, or there are 2 different other car services that they offer, use them. So you probably weren't expecting this, but this video was based on the blog post that I wrote. After writing that blog post, months later, I visited Colombia. And I have to say that now, I would without a doubt say that Colombia is the cheapest place I have ever visited. Now, it's probably because, you know, I didn't still have a 9-to-5 job and money coming in every 2 weeks, so I wasn't like splurging like I normally would. Like in Belize, I could have done it a lot cheaper, but I was spending like $10 on every meal because I could, because, you know, the money would replenish itself and I wouldn't miss it. But now I have to think harder about where I stay, how much is the rent, going grocery shopping versus eating out every day. And even when I do eat out, I have to be really cognizant of how much is this meal going to cost, when am I gonna make this money again, even if it's $3? Like, I just have to be very, very smart about that. So I'm not gonna go into the whole what it costs, you know, to eat out in Medellin or Cartagena. But if you watch my videos, which I will link at the end of this video, that entire Colombian playlist, you'll see how cheap some things were. And I'll also link the blog post where I break down the cost of living in Medellin. I even tell you how much 3 different cups of yogurt cost me. So you are taken care of. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in to my top 3 cheapest places to travel. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've traveled to some really cheap destinations, please drop them below and let us know maybe a US dollar versus that dollar, and let's compare a little bit. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys soon.
I get it how I live it. I live it how I get it. Come to motherfucking digits. I pull it with a lemon. Not cause she ain't living. It's just your eyes get acidic.